hear that? Witchity, 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 witch. Common yellowthroat singing right here. There's so much happening. I thought we could just take a ramble on the old field trail. Sweet, 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 oh sweet, yellow warbler singing. And right in here by the stream, I just saw a bird flitting about, yellow-rumped warblers. They're singing right now here. These thickets, I am telling y'all, they are amazing. So many migrating birds love edges. And then a lot of migrating birds that we have here are also going to nest in this area, which is so exciting to think about. I check the bird migration map. I'll put a link in the description for which one I check every night, and I see how many birds are going to be moving through the air. And this map is really cool because it lights up the areas where it's just going to be a really hot night, like a lot of birds are going to be flying. And when I see that happening in our area, it's all I can think about. There's all these birds in the air doing this thing that they know how to do, that they're so great at doing. And it's not easy, but they can do it. And some nights it's easier than others because the winds are so favorable and it's a bright moon and it's just perfect. And other nights the rains hit and it's difficult, the wind shift, but they keep going. And that is something that I really like to think about. They're so powerful. All of us are so powerful when we just choose to keep going, using our bodies and minds in the way that they're able to be and able to do. Spring is that time of bird migration, as is fall, but spring is also the time of really challenging freezes. This is a persimmon, a Yates that was in full leaf out, and we hit 28 for several hours. Totally within the May 15th frost time, but we'd been warm and they were just leafed out and they felt that freeze so hard, and it hurt our hearts for them to think about it. Oh, and look, there's a psyllid on there, but they're native persimmon psyllid, so they'll come back. But spring is that time. There's so much life happening and so many challenges to surmount. And bird migration. There is bird song everywhere around right now. And when I started birding, I started many years ago at a nature preserve that I worked at. And I came across all of these very colorful birds in a hawthorn patch. I didn't know any of them. I didn't know bird song. I knew the regular feeder birds, and that was it. So I had my binocs and I watched, and I was astonished. And I learned a lot of warblers and other migratory birds that year by watching. And over the years, I've wanted to get a lot better with bird song, bird calls. And I started with CDs. That was the main way of accessing bird calls. And for a long time here in Ohio, when I really started pushing it, trying to learn more, Steve and I both worked in Columbus, and I dropped him off. Usually our hours worked such that we could commute to the city together, and then I would drop him off, and then I would head to my workplace. And in that time period, I would push those CDs into the CD player and listen and listen and listen. And there'd always be a couple that sounded alike to me. And so I'd go back and forth, punching through the different tracks. Okay, got to compare this one with this one with this one. And I got better at it, but it was still difficult. But I kept working, and Steve got really interested as well. Look how green it is. Oh my gosh, and that squeaky bird we're hearing, that's a goldfinch. There's also a brown thrasher singing out here. And as we started hiking a lot more, especially at this one place that's a hemlock gorge, who has a great diversity of birds, we started hearing more and more songs, and we started learning them. We'd scout for the bird over and over and over, and finally we'd find them, and then we could identify them. And some friends gave us some tips on different calls and songs. And then Merlin came out, that app out of Cornell, and that just pushed us into a greater level of learning. We don't use it to identify the birds in an area. For us, we use it to help us learn the songs. So many songs we know now, but some we're like, who's that? Or we still get chipping sparrow and worm-eating warbler confused. And so we use Merlin to see if that app can help us. And last year, I believe it was, we were in a parking lot, but in Edge, where both occur. And we turned Merlin on because we were just struggling. Oh, it's this one. No, it's that one. And Merlin did the same thing. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Couldn't decide because they have all the recordings in there, but there are still many that just sound similar. And it makes it great fun. It's just a great challenge, and it is so cool to have this tool now to help us continue learning, because these birds are fascinating. They have really interesting life cycles. We want to know, where are they coming from? Where are they going? Where are they likely to live? And we spend time with that. And this restoration here, it has just been phenomenal with attracting birds. These thickets, the woodland edges, the open meadow areas, they attract different types of birds at different times of year. And this year, I just made a really quick list this morning. These are the migratory birds that we have very recently heard. Yes, heard. We haven't seen a lot of these, but these are the ones we've heard, and we know the songs. That is pretty fantastic, isn't it? I mean, this is from our house. Our house. We didn't chase a migratory fallout, a migrant bird fallout like we used to, because we didn't live somewhere that offered a lot of the habitat necessary for even migrating birds or breeding birds. So we would have to drive to go. But now we are here. And that has really been what's driven this whole thing, everybody, is the life returning. Not just the birds, but the insects, the plants moving around, the plants saying, okay, you planted me here, but I'd rather grow over here, and a seed landed here because the bird pooped me out, and I'm really happy here, so I'm gonna grow there and die out where you planted me. And we recognize, yeah, you know better than we do where you want to grow. And that response from this land is what keeps us going. I'm hearing the brown thrasher and the common yellowthroat right now, and I'm going to show you where the brown thrasher is every year. You can see this old field has a lot of growing to do. I mean, we're only in the beginning of May. The sumac, the staghorn sumac, got completely zapped at the same time that the persimmons did and the pawpaw. And sumac are really tough, but it was just the right moment in their leaf development, I think, where they were quite soft and vulnerable. Oh, wow. Can you imagine this? Before, I would stand here on our northern property line and I could see our house. I've been walking this whole way with you and you couldn't see it. There's been a lot of growth in 13 years. And we didn't plant most of this. That's something I always want to impress on everybody. We didn't plant most of this. A lot of things will come back on their own. Especially if your seed bank is good, or if you're somewhere where there's seeds in the fence rows still, or if you live near parks. Now what I'm standing next to, I wanted to make a point of showing everybody. We have a lot of wild blackberry in here and some really interesting trees, but there are a ton of invasive plants in this corner. I'm going to turn the way here and we'll see. Because I want to be honest about this. We are not completely invasive free here yet. It takes a long time. And you got to use your bodies and you got to work it. And then you can revel in that your bodies can do it. And some things that we've done are silly, like planting these spruces. And they're beautiful. I mean, they're going to grow. But the cedars came in on their own. So we'll do a video on that perhaps at some point, on some of the things I wish we had done differently and some of our greatest joys. So in our little weedy corner is a lot of bush honeysuckle, the non-native one, and autumn olive, just that, multiflora rose, and some garlic mustard. We've really worked on those plants in other areas, but this one remains for the end. And it also remains the favorite place of the brown thrashers. Favorite. So we're watching in here to learn from this mix of plants. What is it that we can do in terms of encouraging native plants that mimics the nesting opportunities in here that they so love, because they're choosing it every time. There's tangles of grape. It's just a really thick patch, and I can see as a bird why you would pick it, because it would be safer than many other spots. And it also has more of the branching structure than other spots. You can see right here, I mean, this silky dogwood, it's real thin. The branches are thin. A big brown thrasher's not going to want to build their nest right in there. There's a tree frog calling. So the great gift of using your ears is that you can identify a lot of life around you and not have to see them. But then you know they're there. And I just love sounds. So does Steve. We both love music. And that's one of the most beautiful things that humans have done, is music. And so it's just frog music and toad music and bird music. We are going to reopen our woodland path. We had shut this one down because it runs parallel to this old field path, but this gets so wet in the spring, and so we're going to reopen that woodland path, and that will provide us some nice access to deal with the weeds that are in there slowly and work on restoring natives, but also putting woodland wildflowers back in there. There are some growing that have made it through the onslaught of all the craziness that this land has had to deal with, and I think that others are ready to go back in. This is indicative that this trail gets wet here. It's very seepy. This is lake sedge. And there's willows growing in here and bald cypress. Sweet, sweet, sweet of sweet. Yellow warbler, they always nest here. And they're little yellow balls of beauty. So this is a type of meditation that we do. I'm not good at sitting still and meditating. I'm very good though at sitting still and watching birds, watching the turkey vultures fly over. I'm very good at walking this path here and being present. And Steve heard a program on that once and talking about walking meditation. And I thought that's perfect. And we do that here. We don't do that everywhere because there's that other part of us that has got to move and got to move pretty quick and challenge our bodies. This right here allows us to be present in our minds and go slow and perhaps be restorative on our bodies because of the miles we crank out in other ways. You'll see that a lot of these rough-leaf dogwoods and silkies, gosh, some of them really got zapped too. I can see their dying leaves up top, but they're sending out new green buds. So a ton of this has not leafed out at all. I looked out at a sugar maple north of our house this morning and it's still not leafed out. So we're quite green. I keep talking about the lushness, but we are not full on lush. I mean, wait till July. Oh my gosh. We really work to encourage these different plants in different places. Like here, wild raspberry again, black raspberry, planted themselves. I should probably say I bet the birds planted them. Birds love to eat them just as much as we do. And so we never harvest all the fruits here because a big part of what we're doing is getting more habitat going and growing. And the avian seed planters and the mammalian seed planters, they're excellent, excellent, excellent at what they do. Now, this is an interesting note. There was a really big multiflora rose in here, tangled in with blackberry and silky dogwood and American plum. And we removed it right before full-on nesting season started because we just don't do any sort of weed management in nesting season. And there had been a brown thrasher singing in this area prior to us doing that, and we haven't heard them in here since. Now, there was no nest in here at all, but I think they were interested in this area because of that really big tangle. It's another lesson, but it's also not clear what to do because multiflora rose can be really difficult in some environments for any other plants to survive. Always learning, always learning. We're almost done with the old field trail, everybody. You've hung with us a long time. Us, me. My gosh, this oak tree's been in forever. Some really just got to cranking right away, and some have not. Some are still a foot tall. That'll be another day. Woodland trail. Let's just finish this one. This is our oldest persimmon here, and we planted them long ago, and they flower now, and they are a male. And most persimmons are males. So we're hoping for some more flowering soon with some females. This area always has birds in here. They love this area. Doves sit on the ground in here all the time. Woodcock probe around. That's where the yellow warbler was. So more than identification on birds is learning their habitat preferences. What is it that they need to survive? How can we help share space so that they have everything they need to survive? And then what can we do to make sure they have all of that and enough so they can get back to wherever it is that they came from? And then how can we appreciate them while they're here? There's a house wren singing up here. They're always ever so vocal. This in here is climbing rose. It's one we're really experimenting with to see how we can get birds to nest in this rose. It has to climb other plants to make any sort of density of material, but you can see it's got some pretty good thorns to offer some protection if we can figure out the pairing. Blackberries in here too. Maybe blackberries part of the pairing. What obviously is, but they are just big stalks, so we need something else to allow them to say, hey birds, come nest here. It's a good spot. Look, the light is coming in over there. These open meadows underneath these shrubs put on all kinds of seeds from the sedges and the grasses that grow in there, and a lot of sparrows love to eat those seeds. And now you can see we're about at the end of the old field. You can see the green barn, and if you look over the top of the green barn, there is our house. So let me cross back over this bridge, and then we're going to turn around and we're going to remember that all of this was open. That's what we're going to do. We're going to go up by the green barn so we have a really great vantage point. Catbird. They always stay here for so long and feast on the pokeweed, which are now about 3 feet tall. The sun feels so good. Okay, we're almost there. You've hung with me on a really long video. Thank you. Steve's walking over there and we're almost done. Sweet, 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 oh sweet. It's a persimmon, a new one I planted. Okay, here we go. Oh, I think a song sparrow's nesting in there. I've heard them in there a couple times and seen them. All right, I've waited to turn the camera. We're at the green barn. Now there's an acre and a half out here. Oh my gosh. It's a wall of green. There is no more lawn out there, everybody, other than the path. It happens fast. Plants want to grow. And then the plants want to hold the migratory birds. They want to offer food. They want to offer nesting sites. They want to offer shelter.